What if Anakin Skywalker stayed on Mortis to become the father of Mortis? That's what we're going to explore today, and folks, this might be my most fan-fiction-y fan fiction that I've ever written. It gets wild, so enjoy. I had fun writing it, I hope you enjoy listening. Just have fun, and let me know what you think in the comments. Yeah, let's get right into it. We begin our story on Mortis as Anakin encounters the father next to his ship. Anakin had just been shown what will happen if he doesn't end the Clone War, the destruction Anakin will cause, and Anakin was determined to leave Mortis with the son, here and now. But the father emerged and tried to talk Anakin off the ledge, saying there was a better path for the galaxy. The son must die, and balance will be set in motion. The father cured Anakin's mind of the darkness, and the two of them put a plan into place. After some time, the son returned to confront the father and kill him with the dagger, once and for all. The son thought that Anakin was still on his side, and that worked for the plan that Anakin and the father had made. As the son went for the kill, Anakin said he wanted to do it instead, to give himself fully to the darkness. Now Obi-Wan and Ahsoka were also here, watching in horror, unaware of the plan. The son handed Anakin the dagger, and Anakin swung past the father, and turned, stabbing the son. The son looked at Anakin with hatred, with betrayal, knowing he and his father betrayed him, and in his final moments, the son pulled out the dagger, stabbing Anakin as well. Anakin felt the pain, and he knew it was over. He heard Obi-Wan and Ahsoka scream as his vision faded, and he wondered what came after death. In just one single moment, both the son and Anakin were dead. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka ran up to Anakin, but a blinding light took over Mortis, and the two of them ended up waking up aboard their ship in space. Rex was contacting them, and the Jedi remembered all of it. Anakin was gone. And on Mortis, the father stood alone with the son and Anakin dead on the ground. The father knew now what had to be done in this moment. He kneeled down, slowly transferring his life force into Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one. Perhaps this was destiny. The father was close to death, and eventually he did die as he put his entire life force into Skywalker. The father now lived in Anakin. Eventually, Anakin opened his eyes and he felt different, as if he held great power within him. The last thing Anakin remembered was dying with the son. Anakin didn't even have time to say goodbye to Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, but he was alive, and his friends were gone. Anakin stumbled around until the ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn appeared to Anakin. Qui-Gon explained what happened to Anakin, that he was fulfilling his destiny as the chosen one. He was meant to keep the balance, and now that is what he must do. Anakin must train himself to become the father. And he was in denial at first. He couldn't just leave Padme, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka. He couldn't. But he was stranded. Qui-Gon said that Anakin could train himself to return to the real world. It would take time, and training, and effort, and then Qui-Gon disappeared. Anakin was alone, left to train with his newfound power. In the galaxy, Obi-Wan and Ahsoka returned to the Jedi Temple, distraught and confused. They described what they saw, and Yoda said it was a thing of legends. Apparently, these legends were true. Anakin was gone, dead as far as anyone knew, and the Republic would suffer because of it during the Clone War. He was their best fighter. He was the hero with no fear. And Padme Amidala was completely heartbroken. She didn't understand any of this. The Force was not familiar to her. Ahsoka tried her best to explain everything, but Ahsoka was also heartbroken by the death of Anakin. It was a sad day, but the war must continue on. And Chancellor Palpatine, secretly Darth Sidious, had to adjust. He also had a bit of knowledge about these Mortis gods, but never enough to see them. He would opt to emerge as Emperor, as a single Sith Lord, in due time, not believing in this balance, this whatever this was on Mortis. Anakin was dead. He would emerge and take over the galaxy. And on Mortis, Anakin Skywalker was now still alive, fully embracing his new role as the father, the keeper of balance. In time, His Force abilities far exceeded those of the entire Jedi Council combined. He was the most powerful being the galaxy had ever seen. He trained himself to become basically invincible. Lightsabers had no effect on him, and any Force power used against him would be just deflected back into the user. His power was incomprehensible, and soon Anakin learned to see into the galaxy, like visions, but he could do it on command. If one side of the Force was acting on something huge, Anakin could see into it. And after a year or so on Mortis, Anakin allowed himself to look into the near future of the galaxy. Anakin was still very young. He had a strong heart. He was trying to do what was best for the galaxy, for balance, but in the end he wanted to keep his friends safe, and he wielded the power to do so. And so when Anakin looked into the future, he saw death, destruction, pain, the Jedi Order crumbling, and at the center of it all, Chancellor Palpatine. Anakin had the knowledge now. Palpatine was Darth Sidious, and Anakin spent the rest of his time here training himself to transport back into the real world. Training, learning, what was this place in reality? Who resided here? He learned about the mother from long ago, and how she was banished, learned more about the daughter, the son, the father, himself. And it all took great time and effort, but the day came where it had to work. Anakin could feel that today was the day Palpatine was going to kill the Jedi, and he put all of his effort into stopping him. Across the galaxy on Coruscant, Mace Windu was battling with Darth Sidious in his office. Windu traveled to the office with Jedi Masters Saesee Tiin, Kit Fisto, and Agen Kolar. None of them expected Palpatine to be a Sith Lord. They were merely coming to ask the Chancellor to give up his emergency powers. But now, as Sidious revealed himself to be a Sith, he had the clear upper hand on Windu, who did not expect this. Sidious backed Windu into a corner. He would kill him, execute Order 66. The Sith would rule the galaxy. But as Sidious rose his saber for the kill, he was frozen in place. Coruscant seemed to switch from night to being bright, and in the office, a new person began to form. Sidious looked to who this was, and Anakin Skywalker formed into view. This was impossible. It had to be. Palpatine dropped his lightsaber and shot lightning at Anakin in fear, but the lightning redirected back at Sidious with 10 times the amount, 10 times the power. Sidious screamed in terror as he was burned and disintegrated on the spot. The Sith were gone. The darkness completely evaporated. The light side of the Force was far and away overtaking everything, and Anakin, still young and naive, prevented the death of so many with this move. A small part of him wondered if this choice was against the balance, if there would be retaliation in the Force. But right now, he didn't care. He just wanted to find his wife, find his friends. He saved the galaxy. And in time, Anakin would be reunited with the Jedi Order and with Padme. The first time seeing Padme again was one of the greatest moments of Anakin's life. He was a hero. He saved the Republic, and they would be able to live happily ever after. Anakin was welcomed back with the Jedi, and soon he was made a Jedi Master and welcomed to the Council. His power was beyond all of them, and the galaxy was truly at peace. Eventually, Anakin and Padme would have one child, a boy, and they would name him Jinn, after Master Qui-Gon Jinn. And with peace across the galaxy, everyone rested safely and happily for 20 years. Over these 20 years, the Jedi continued to uphold the peace, but the darkness was snuffed out. Dooku was dead, Maul was arrested, Sidious was long gone. The Jedi, the light side, stood tall. Anakin would still worry if he made the right decision to leave Mortis, to risk disrupting the balance, and over the years, his power wouldn't disappear, but it would go back similar to what he was as a Jedi. Without the power of Mortis running through him, he had no need to maintain it, and he let himself just be Anakin Skywalker. The Father still resided inside of him, and could come out if needed, but he was Anakin, and he loved Padme, Jinn, and his friends too much to go back to Mortis. There was no need. The darkness was gone. And during these years, Jinn would grow up training as a Jedi. But every night, since he was a little baby, as he slept, A dark force, a voice, would sneak up to him, slowly, carefully corrupting him, like dark tendrils surrounding his heart, putting fear, doubt, anger in the heart of Jinn. But he thought it was good. Jinn didn't understand. He thought this was normal. The voice was like a mother's embrace. And at the age of 20, Jinn had become convinced by this dark force inside of him that the dark side was the way to peace inside of him, to power, the way to finally be as good as his father. Jinn never told anyone about this darkness, about this voice, this feeling inside of him. He was worried he wouldn't be accepted, and Jinn already felt different than everyone because of his father. But today, Jinn opened himself to the darkness. He wanted to show everyone just how powerful he truly could be. He opened himself to it, and someone called to him. Someone he was familiar with. Someone who was always there since the day he was born. It was like Jinn was destined to find this thing. And so Jinn got into a starship and simply let the Force guide him. He was overtaken and jumped into hyperspace. This was what he wanted. He would finally be able to be just as powerful. And on Coruscant, Anakin Skywalker could feel a drastic shift in the Force. He was in the Jedi Temple with Grandmaster Yoda, who clearly felt it as well. The two of them had been talking about Anakin taking over as Grand Master once Yoda died, but that was suddenly the least of their worries. For the first time since the Clone Wars, there was a darkness in the Force. Yoda and Anakin called Council members Windu, Plo Koon, Kenobi, Fisto, and the rest into the Council chambers. They had to dive into the Force, find out what was wrong. Anakin was still all-powerful, but less so than when he was on Mortis. When on Mortis, he could see everything, and perhaps soon he would have to make his return. As Anakin headed to the Council chambers, Chancellor Padme Amidala called him on his comlink. Their son, Jinn, was missing, and his Jedi friends told Padme that something was clearly wrong with him before he left. This made Anakin begin to panic. He would talk to the Council, and he would take off for Mortis very soon. After 20 years away, he could no longer just transport there. He needed a ship, but he would get back. He had to. In wild space, deep into the Outer Rim, into the unknown territories, Jinn emerged from hyperspace, and what he saw in front of him was chilling. It was some sort of giant maw, and the calming, powerful voice in his head told Jinn that the maw could give him ultimate power. He would finally be just like his father, make him proud. Jinn was blinded by this, blinded by the dark side, by the voice inside his head. And he flew right into the maw. Inside the maw lay the mother. She was once a member of the family from Mortis, the father, the son, the daughter, and the long-lost mother. A long, long time ago, the mother had grown far too ambitious in the dark side and was banished to a prison inside of this maw. She wanted nothing but destruction, and in order to escape, the mother needed the Force to be cut off from the darkness. She needed a viable person to enter herself into, someone very powerful, and she needed the Force to require darkness again. And the day Anakin killed Sidious, the Force had become free of darkness. There was no balance. Now, the darkness would return. It was just the way of things. The mother felt her power grow as Jinn entered the maw. Finally, she was free, and she took over the body of Jinn Skywalker. As Jinn felt his body get taken over, he became trapped in his own mind, stuck forever. And a new name entered his mind, the name of this entity, Abeloth, the Mother. As Anakin met with the Council members to discuss this dark feeling, a presence in the Force hit him like a boulder. But not a presence Anakin knew. No, this was a presence that the Father inside of him recognized, and the Father feared this presence like no other. Anakin grabbed his head, falling to his knees. This was bad. Something was terribly wrong. Anakin told the Council members to wait inside, then he ran down to the temple stairs. He could feel this presence outside. Finally, Anakin reached the bottom of the stairs to find his son, Jinn Skywalker. But something was off. Jinn was radiating darkness. His eyes were a black void. His face was shifting from Jinn to an ancient woman with a broken smile. The parts of the Father that resided inside of Anakin recognized this, and Anakin knew now this was someone he learned about from his time on Mortis. The Mother, forever banished beyond space and time, but here she was. Anakin did not want to hurt his son, but an evil laugh erupted from his mouth, and with one finger, the Mother did something that tore Anakin apart. With just a flick of the finger, Abeloth completely destroyed the Jedi Temple, crumbled it to the ground, exploded it. Within seconds, the Jedi Order that Anakin had helped rebuild to its glory was completely destroyed, and every Jedi inside of it was dead. Yoda, Plo Koon, Obi-Wan, all crushed. Anakin looked to Jinn, and he was now completely transformed. The ancient woman stood tall in front of Anakin, tendrils emerging from her ghostly body. Anakin could feel the power of the Father inside of him. He tried to attack Abeloth, but was thrown all the way into the rubble of the temple. She was too powerful. Anakin wasn't ready. Anakin got up again, heartbroken, but needing to fight. And as he got up, Abeloth flicked her finger again, and this time the Senate building erupted into an explosion without any hesitation. Anakin felt like passing out, like dying. Both Padme and Ahsoka were in there. But then Anakin looked back to Abeloth. She was holding both Padme and Ahsoka with the Force. She'd gotten them out. But why? Anakin sprinted at them, and both Padme and Ahsoka screamed in agony before disappearing. By the time Anakin reached Abeloth, his eyes were glowing white, and his power was returning after being dormant, hidden away for 20 years. He demanded to know where they were, and Abeloth said Padme and Ahsoka were now in the Maw, forever imprisoned, alone, just as she was. Now, Anakin and Abeloth, the Father and the Mother, stared at each other. Only one of them could survive, and they both knew that in a fight to the death could only take place on Mortis. Abeloth told Anakin that he knew where she would be, laughing as she disappeared. Anakin looked around to see the complete destruction, the temple gone, the Senate building gone. And Anakin felt the ground shake violently. It began to crack, and soon the ground caved in all around Coruscant. Abeloth had set the core of the planet to explode. Buildings were falling into the ground. The planet was cracking. Fires were emerging. Anakin tried to hold everything together with his great power, but it was no use. He was far too late to try. Instead, Anakin pulled a starship to him, getting into it. He took off into space, with explosions and fire trailing behind him. Anakin punched in the coordinates for Mortis, and as his starship jumped into hyperspace, Coruscant completely exploded behind him. Anakin flew through hyperspace completely in shock. He didn't feel anything. Everything he ever loved, cared about, wanted, all of it was destroyed, like a sandcastle on Tatooine. And Anakin wondered, was this his fault? Did he disrupt the balance when he returned to kill Sidious? He must have, and after 20 years, the Force had retaliated. It corrupted his own son, and Anakin failed to see it. But now, the fight for it all, for the universe, for balance, and it had to take place here, on Mortis. Anakin emerged from hyperspace, returning to the planet, to find Abeloth waiting below. As the suns of Mortis cast their eerie, multicolored glow upon the landscape, Anakin and Abeloth stood on opposing ends of a desolate plain. The very fabric of reality seemed to warp around them, creating an eerie, shifting backdrop for their fateful battle. Anakin, the embodiment of the light side, radiated a brilliance that illuminated their surroundings. He'd officially let himself become the Father, all of the power of the universe running through him. His mere presence seemed to bend the laws of physics, causing the ground to ripple. His eyes glowed with a bright determination as he prepared to face this ancient adversary. Abeloth the Mother, on the other hand, was a twisted, grotesque figure, an embodiment of the dark side that oozed malevolence and evil. Her form shifted, it contorted, as if she were a living nightmare. Her eyes were pools of darkness, her power palpable, suffocating force that hung in the air like a storm cloud. The two did not speak to each other. There was an understanding that one of them would die today. here and now. The battle would begin with a clash of giant energy waves, the Mortis father, Anakin, summoning a torrent of pure light side energy, manifesting as radiant beams of light that lashed out toward Abeloth. In response, Abeloth unleashed a swirling storm of dark side energy, a vortex of black, crimson tendrils that sought to consume all in its path, to consume Anakin. The ground trembled as their opposing forces collided, creating shockwaves that rippled across Mortis. Reality itself seemed to shift and twist, as if Mortis itself were writhing in pain. The suns overhead dimmed and flared erratically, casting shadows that danced across the battlefield. Anakin and Abeloth engaged in an unbelievable display of combat, their forces clashing with blinding speed and precision, each strike sending shockwaves through the Force, causing the fabric of the world to warp and contort. They moved with a fluidity that defied any gravity, moving through the air as if they were weightless. Mountains rose and crumbled, forests withered and blossomed, rivers changed course at the whim. Mortis seemed to be in complete turmoil, a world caught in the middle of this cosmic duel. As the battle escalated to its peak, a moment of realization washed over Anakin. He understood that to defeat Abeloth, he could not rely solely on the light side. He had to embrace the darkness within himself, put both sides of the Force together to achieve the balance that he sought. In order to bring balance, he himself must become the balance. For years he was only the light, but he now knew the darkness had to be his ally. He was no Jedi, he was no Sith, he was the Father, keeper of the balance. With a newfound power, Anakin, the Mortis father, allowed his inner turmoil to surface, acknowledging the darkness that dwelled within him. The very world around him seemed to respond to this shift. As the suns overhead flickered, the landscape quivered with anticipation. Drawing upon the full spectrum of the Force, Anakin's aura transformed into a radiant fusion of light and shadow. Abeloth, sensing this transformation, unleashed a torrent of dark-side energy, a swirling vortex of malevolence that threatened to engulf everything. But Anakin, in perfect harmony with the Force, met her onslaught with a steady, controlled presence. His newfound mastery of both sides of the Force allowed him to counter Abeloth's dark assaults with equal force. He absorbed her energy, transforming it into a perfect blend of light and dark, and sent it back towards her in waves of power. Abeloth was pushed back. The combined might of the Force was too much for her to withstand. With a final, resounding burst of the Force, Anakin struck a decisive blow. Then he looked to his hand, and saw the Mortis dagger. It was like the realm had gifted it to him, as a reward for understanding that he must embrace both sides. As Abeloth writhed on the ground, Anakin drove the dagger into her, and with an agonizing scream, she evaporated. With Abeloth's defeat, the world itself seemed to sigh in relief. Anakin, the father, looked down to where Abeloth had died to see his own son, Jinn, waking up. And in front of him now, Padme and Ahsoka were transported here. With Abeloth dead, her hold on the two of them was released. Anakin felt into the Force and understood. This was a lesson to teach him how to become the balance, a lesson that cost the galaxy trillions of lives. And in the Force, Anakin felt Padme, Ahsoka, and Jinn. They, like him, had become all-powerful. Mortis itself had surrounded Anakin with the new Mortis family. Jinn, the dark side son, Ahsoka, the light side daughter, Padme, the mother, and Anakin, the father. They were the keepers of balance, together. Their duty to the universe was here, together, to forever do this, and for hundreds of thousands of years, the Mortis family would reside here together, doing what they must. Anakin, Padme, Jinn, and Ahsoka together. And folks, that's where we end this one of my longer ones in a while. That was pretty intense. The most intense thing I've ever done. So, let me know what you thought. This could all this Mortis stuff could just be changed in canon with the Ahsoka show, but I had fun writing this. Hope you enjoyed listening. Maybe it's not all up to lore and all that, but I had a lot of fun. Anyways, thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought, and I'll see you in the next video.